So welcome everyone to this webinar on 5 easy steps to overcome procrastination. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Melanie Green. I run a business called Inspire Transformation, and I am an occupational psychologist, so looking at the psychology of people in the workplace. And I work as a coach, trainer, and workplace mediator. And I work in all different organizations, from opera companies to engineering manufacturers, to scientific research, also in the public sector as well, social workers, police, in schools, you name it, because it is looking at about people and how can they really thrive in the workplace. So their resilience, but I also specialize in about how do they communicate well with each other. And I found that that a lot of the time is that people would talk to me about, actually, I'm always procrastinating, and I don't know why I haven't done a webinar on it before. But I suddenly thought, oh, actually, it would be really good, because I would often challenge them, because I often think people think they're procrastinating when actually something else is going on. And hopefully that will become clear as we go through this webinar. In case you have to leave early, because sometimes people do, is just to say about kind of support moving forward is I have got another one of my Being and Doing courses running that's starting next Monday, the 25th. And instead of it used to be £99, but with the economic climate, etc., it's £49. It's an 8-week video-based course, and I will send you more information about it after today. But you get 2 videos and a workbook every Monday. You get Wednesday inspiration, and Friday you get a new technique every Friday to review what you've learnt and to end the week on a high. I also offer a free coaching audit if you're interested in exploring coaching with me. And if you're not already registered on my website for Melanie's Monday Motivational Messages, please do that. And then we'll be able to, what was I going to say? You'll also be able to keep in touch with free webinars, etc., because I do a number throughout the year. What we're going to cover today, first of all, we're going to do a little poll about what do you procrastinate about. Is that we're going to look at what do we mean by procrastination. Then there's the 5 steps, and I'm throwing a lot at this website, so I am. You're not expected to do everything. So there are different tools and techniques under each step. And also it might just be one thing you need to do under each step. The first thing is about, are you really procrastinating? Identifying the root cause of your particular procrastination, because it will be different for different people. Different tips for setting yourself up for success. And just do it. And I know that sounds simple, but I have got tools and techniques to help you to just do it as well. And then the 5th one is about developing a growth mindset, so that you learn from the slip-ups, the setbacks you have, rather than beat yourself up and give up. So let's move on to the poll. And I'm just about to launch the poll. So hopefully you can tick as many of these as you want. So there's some to do with in work, some outside of work. There is an other. And if you want to tick the other, then do put in the chat box what it is that you find difficult to deal with. And so just go and tick as many as you want. So hopefully you can see the poll now on your screen. So the results are 75% having difficult conversations in or out of work. It's one of my specialist subjects that I coach and train people on. It is that, people can put it off for years and avoid. And then often the problem gets worse and worse. And then when you do it, there's the backlog of all the emotion or resentment, and it makes it even harder. DIY tasks. Yes, and 75% about getting on with tasks to meet a deadline. I'll be talking about deadlines later on. 50% about exercising. 75% about healthy eating routines. 50% report writing. 75% replying to emails, and 25% organising socials. So I'm glad the rest of you actually get on and organise those socials, have a balanced life, and 25% with mundane household tasks. So there's a mixture of things, and hopefully you'll be able to see as I go through this is that everything I talk about can be applied to whatever it is we procrastinate about. So I like to look at the definition of what we're talking about. So I always go to my trusted dictionary, and there's two things. There's one is about to put off something intentionally or habitually, and the other is to keep delaying something that must be done, often because it is unpleasant or boring. And that really struck me, that thing about things being unpleasant or boring. Most of the time, we don't put off something that actually is going to be really enjoyable. Although sometimes, people do for whatever, reason, but most of the time it is because it will be unpleasant and boring. I think it's when you habitually do it rather than, okay, well, there's just occasionally there's something that I don't get around to doing. So let's have a look at is first of all about the step one is about, are you really a procrastinator? Because I think a procrastinator for me is almost like identity level, is that everything you leave to last minute, or everything you never get around to doing things. And I'm kind of guessing, and I know some of the people who are on this webinar, and some of you are very successful in your careers. You'll be running households, you'll be running businesses for some of you, so it's clearly you do get some things done. So what is it, please feel free to share in the chat box. What is it that you're good at and that you find easy to get done? And when do you find it easy? So it might be that actually if you organise for things, first thing in the morning. I'm a morning person, so I do my Pilates, I do my early morning walk, I do my Buddhist practice, I do all of that early in the morning because I'm a morning person. If I left it to the evening, whereas other people, well, they're an evening person, that's the best time to do exercise. My brother will go out for a run at 9 o'clock at night. I'm in bed by then. So, when is it that actually you find things easiest to do? And to, really think about this and think about that, is that that perhaps you're trying to do things at the wrong time of the day. It might be the wrong time of the week, is that, or the month, or whatever else it is. So some people saying my morning routine is easiest for me. Easy to do, somebody else said, easy to do quick wins that are interesting. Yes. And so often we get on with that interesting thing, but the thing that's really crucial that we need to get on with, that perhaps is boring and mundane, that we don't end up getting around to, or not until it's very late in the day. So somebody else saying, when I've got a deadline, it will get done. When there's no specific deadline, it's harder to get focused on. It's easier when it's something I'm not scared of doing as well. So when we come on to the root cause, is I think that will tackle a number of points that you've made there. So let's move on to the understanding the root cause. And I'm going to talk about personality type, energy levels, your inner dialogue, and whether you're a move towards or an away from person. So let's look at personality. Now, I use Myers-Briggs type indicator, and it has 4 dimensions. I'm only going to talk about one of the dimensions today that is relevant to procrastination. And I will send you a link because you can now do it for free online. And if anybody's interested in doing it. So the J's versus the P's. So the J's are people who, here's where you are now, here's your deadline, is that they will either they're kind of start work now if the deadline's quite close, or they'll put time in their diaries as to when they're going to do the slots of work that will meet the deadline well in advance of the deadline. So they're not the last minute people doing it last minute. And whereas they also, and a potential downside is because they kind of get stuck in quickly, is that they don't explore options. They close down things very quickly. Whereas the P's is they get their energy right near the deadline. So either they'll do nothing until right at the deadline. They're the ones that, when they were studying for exams, they would do things, work through the night, maybe doing reports, getting, done all through the night. Or they might start exploring ideas about the report or exploring ideas about something, and then get down to the actual writing whatever they need to do right at the deadline, which also means they find it incredibly difficult if they don't have a deadline to meet. And, I've coached many Ps and they do find that really, really hard. And it's almost about, committing to me to get things to me, or thinking of almost penalties that we can impose on them that, that creates that motivation. Whereas, Js are much better at, deciding on something and getting down to do it, whether there's a deadline or not. But there's huge strengths to the Ps. And I want to give you an example, was that I often work with teams. And I was asked to work with the head of IT in a national organization and his next layer of managers down. And I'd done work with the senior leadership team, and he was part of that. And we'd looked at Myers-Briggs. And he said, I've got some people in my team, some of my managers, and they're so lazy. They only get things, on my desk, the day that I said, I need it by. And so I explained about J's and P's, and he knew that. And so they came on the workshop, and it just worked perfectly because they'd done the Myers-Briggs beforehand. There were 3 J's, including him, and 3 P's. So when we came to do classic team building exercises, you've got a stack of paper. We want you to build a tower of paper, or a tower out of paper, and the tallest one wins. And I gave them 20 minutes, and it was classic. So I split the J's and the P's. And the J's, classic, is they've just started to build very, very quickly. The P's took ages. They were exploring different design ideas and etc. And when it came to 15 minutes, and there was 5 minutes to go, so I said, oh, right, I'm giving you a 5-minute warning. You've got 5 minutes to go. And the P's went, 5 minutes to go. Right, we haven't even started yet. But they'd been testing out lots of ideas. Up went this tower. They completed it within the time. They built the tallest tower, the best standing tower, etc. And it really showed the J's that actually it's often the P's will come up with something better, but they will do it at the last minute. And that can frustrate the hell out of J's. So I'd just be interested, is what do you think you are? Now, obviously, you might be in the middle there. Do you think you're a J or do you think you're a P? So I am a J. I have always worked with a fellow occupational psychologist, so all Ps. They all, whether male, female, whoever they are, they've always been Ps. What I did learn was that actually that a lot of the time is that if I held off, is that we got something better. And because we kept the ideas open rather than just getting everything sealed and done and dusted there and then. So somebody's saying, I'm a J, but I always explore different options before making a decision. So so that's good, a good mixture too. Somebody else saying that they're in the middle. And so it's worth doing the questionnaire when I send you the link and just looking at where you fall on this, because it has a big impact on whether because P's, in one way, they're procrastinating, but actually they're just, they're just, what's the word? Playing to type. Is they're being very P rather than what they think is, I keep on putting it off, I keep on putting it off. It's just very natural for them to work in that way. It might annoy other people around them. So that's the personality and the impact of it. I then want to talk about your energy levels, because I work with usually people who are incredibly busy. They're often busy in work, they're busy out work, and they, often say to me, oh, but I'm not getting around to doing this in work or doing that outside of work. And, and I coach them and question them is it down to the fact, actually, are you just exhausted? Are you working too long hours and then you don't have the energy to do the DIY on the mundane household tasks or whatever else it is outside of work, or even socialize outside of work? Is it the fact that you have no time for yourself? So when you do have a moment, rather than doing the ironing or whatever else, does anyone iron nowadays? I don't. But anyway, we find that most people don't. But whatever it is actually you'd rather kind of actually, let's go and have a bubble bath. Let's go, curl up with a book or whatever, or go for a walk, rather than get on with what you should do. So I think, really question yourself about your energy levels. And is that what's stopping you doing certain tasks? Also, that if you tend to do the kind of the quick wins in the morning, but they're not the kind of the big chunk things that you need to get on with that might be more difficult and more boring, you may be using up the energy in the headspace to then do that later on. And so one of my clients that who definitely doesn't procrastinate, but does have a very unbalanced life. And so what she's decided is that, for the first hour before the staff get into the office, is she will do the really kind of gritty things, that while she's fresh, she won't look at her emails until about mid-morning. And so when she's fresh, she's getting on with those things that are quite difficult to do. So somebody has said, in terms of the energy, that, they're suffering from all of those things. Is that I think, therefore, it is really exploring about actually either how you're working, how you're managing things outside of work. Do you have a please people driver in you that is busy pleasing everybody else, but never pleasing yourself, never giving yourself enough time? So do explore and think about that further. So what about what's going on in your head? So when you were growing up, what did the grown-ups say to you when you were young, when you were a teenager? Were they saying things like, you're lazy, particularly if you're P? Because they might say, well, you're lazy, you're disorganized, you're hopeless, you're stupid. What else? What were people saying to you that perhaps has become kind of embedded in your head, and that you believe that about yourself, which frequently the things that we've taken from our childhood and we believe are no longer true. So what I wanted you to do is to explore that inner dialogue. So is some of that procrastination because of what's going on inside your head? So maybe there's a lot of shoulds there rather than what you want to do. So feel that you should do the household stuff or the DIY or the whatever else it is, but actually not a lot of what you really want to be doing. and that will sustain you, to fulfill you, etc. Perhaps also that there's that inner fearful child that's got a lot of what ifs, and that, and you might be suffering from the tyranny of perfectionism. I haven't mentioned my book about mastering your inner critic, releasing your inner wisdom. And I talk about the tyranny of perfectionism. And obviously the book's all about the inner dialogue. You can get it from me, $9.99, including postage and packaging. I've talked about the please people, is that if you're really ruled by that please people driver, then you might be exhausting yourself, and therefore, it's leading to procrastination just because you're exhausted, really. Perhaps there's the kind of the sulky, rebellious child in you that is saying, actually, I'm not going to do this. This is not fair. Why does it always fall to me? Whether that's at work or out of work. And that's stopping you from getting on. And it is about tapping into your wise adult self. And there's an exercise in the book, but I'll also send you a handout about it, that is about your wise adult self and tapping into and listening to the different things. So somebody else says, definitely a perfectionist, so that stops me getting things finished while I worry that they're not good enough yet. Definitely please people before myself. So, that's going to lead to exhaustion. I think also is that I'm coaching somebody at the moment who is a real perfectionist and will end up putting far too much effort into things at work. And, they want to get a balanced life. But actually, you find that most perfectionists, if they rein it in a bit, they'll still be better than what most of other people are doing, but they're not taking so long over tasks. Is that sometimes perfectionism can stop you from even starting. So I write Melanie's Monday Motivational Messages. I'm writing my second book at the moment, which is called Finding the Joy in the Shit, based on my own and my clients' experiences. And I always say to, people say, oh, do you ever get writer's block? And I've never had writer's block, and I've been writing for donkey's years. But I think my mentality, my mindset is just right. You edit later, you can throw things out, you can decide not to include that, but just write, and not crafting the perfect sentence, but just getting your ideas down. Then you start tweaking it. So if you're aware that your inner dialogue is getting in the way of you getting things done, then it's a good opportunity then to do the listening to yourself exercise. And I'm just making a note to send you the listening to yourself exercise. So somebody said, as a child, I was told I was a fusspot, which I think indicated my perfectionist streak. And I agree. And that stops me from starting, or stops me from getting things finished, because there is knowing when is enough. And I have gone to painting classes at different points in my life. And I always remember teachers saying, it's knowing when your picture and your painting is finished, because you could always be doing more to it, but actually it's leaving it and knowing. And it's a bit like that with a report as well. So let's move on. I'm keeping an eye on the time. So last thing to do with understanding the root cause is whether you're an away from or a towards person. And I'm going to give an example of this. So I was writing another book at one point, and I wanted to finish the first draft before I went on holiday. I was going to go with my mum on a fly drive holiday to America, to the west coast of America. And I was working with a coach, and he was I said, I really want to get this done, but I'm not getting around to it, which you could talk about, procrastination. And he said, just imagine how wonderful it's going to be. And you're on this holiday and you're driving down the west coast of California and you've got the Beach Boys playing. And it was doing absolutely nothing for me in terms of motivating me. And then he looked at his calendar and he said, "Oh, did you know that there's only 10 weeks until you go away?" And I went, only 10 weeks. And I had been telling loads of people that I was going to get this done. And so the towards is what he was painting was how good you're going to feel when you're on holiday and you will have done this. I'm very much an away from. It does mean sometimes I do a bit of towards, but I'm often my motivations is to move away. And there was about not losing faith. I'd said to people that I was going to do this, and so I'd be losing faith. Face is that for some people it will be about my boss will be really annoyed if I don't meet this deadline, so I'll get it done, rather than a towards person might be actually if I get it done 2, 3, 4 days beforehand, I'm just going to feel so great and then I'll have headspace to get on with other stuff, and that's more of a towards person. Somebody has said it may not all be bad. I did something for the first time last week because I felt I should and enjoyed it so much. It became a want, and I'm looking forward to doing it again this week. Now, I'm intrigued about what you were doing that you felt you should do and you enjoyed it. So please, if you can share that, that would be very interesting. That's just my nosiness there. But I would interested to find that out. And sometimes, we do feel differently once we've done something. And it's interesting the difference between introverts and extroverts. And I've often heard this from introverts and often from their partners as well. Introverts often it's like, I really don't want to go to that party. There's no way I want to go to a big group. Can't we just go out for dinner on our own or with another couple? And yet when they go, they enjoy it. Is that, so there's sometimes is that actually doing it is, we're surprised by it. So let's move on to the next step is about, summing up about the underlying causes. Talked about personality type, the P's or the J's, your energy levels. Are you just too exhausted to do things? Inner dialogue and what's going on. Are you a move towards or an away from person? So let's move on to the next step, which is setting yourself up for success. I'm not suggesting you do all of this, but you bear in mind some of these things. Is that that you that you list out first of all the benefits. Is that it may be all the benefits to you, but if there's benefits to others, if you're in a workplace, maybe to the team or to the company or whatever else it might be, sometimes that will kind of give you that's that kind of that towards that motivation. Also creating a well-formed outcome. I don't have time to go into that right now, but I will send you a handout about writing well-formed outcomes. It's a good way of getting your brain set up about actually, if I am successful doing that, what will this look, sound, and feel like in very positive terms? And that also includes asking you about what you will gain from doing this. And this is all getting your brain geared up to help set yourself up for success. I also think is starting with small steps and chunks. If you've got a report to write, then do like the headings. Is that I just started this new book, and I have an accountability buddy, and kind of saying I'd like to get started with it. I don't seem to find there's times where I have time, I haven't got the energy. And so we decided Monday mornings, first thing, I'll put that aside. And once I kind of have got started, then I can't stop. And I want to do more and more. But one of the things was I just put down loads of subheadings, loads of different things, keep on adding to those. So it helps to, sometimes it's about you've got a DIY job, but maybe listing out all the things you need to do about it, and breaking it down might be the thing to do. So the next point, and linked to the tyranny of perfectionism, and again, I write about it in the book, is about this idea of approximate perfection. And is that sometimes it can be that tyranny of perfectionism stops us. And I was running a course back in 2019. It was about really thriving in life and having a more balanced life. And there was one woman there who said, I'd like to take up running again. And she said, but I never do it. And we were exploring it. And she said, well, I used to be a marathon runner and then I injured myself and I haven't run at all. And I have in my head that I kind of got to be a marathon runner again, rather than just run for the pleasure of it. Run for a mile, run for, 5 minutes to start with. And I think that if you think about things like Couch to 5K, and I know my cousin's been doing it, is it starts really, really, really small to get you going. So I think, thinking about that, and this is all about setting yourself up for success. Also, managing your energy levels, having regular breaks is really important. And the mindset of doing something is better than nothing. So if you've got that really difficult task or report to write, is that perhaps, first thing in the morning when your brain is fresh, doing the overview, putting down, some bullet points that you want to include in it might be a starting point. It's enough to kind of get you off the track, not the tracks. What's the starting blocks, isn't it, that runners have? Enough to get you off of that. And I always this thing about something is better than nothing is that for 20 years I suffered from really extreme allergic rhinitis all year round. And so I wanted to exercise, but I was frequently exhausted. But I'd kind of go, it's fine, just go for a 10 or 15-minute walk. Just walk around the block. Something is better than nothing. And that's always been now my sort of mantra about things. And I find that once I start doing whatever it is that I have been reluctant to do, then it makes it much easier to continue and to build on that. And I know a number of people in the poll at the beginning said about the having difficult conversations, writing a well-formed outcome around how you want to have this conversation in a constructive way is a really good starting place to do that. And the document I'll send you has also got some examples, and one of them is about having a difficult conversation with somebody. So again, feel free to make any comments, ask any questions. So step 4 is just do it. Sounds so easy, doesn't it? But I often quote Yoda, who said, do or do not, there is no try. And it's something, and I know there's some clients of mine who are on this webinar, is that I catch clients if they are when it comes to action planning, and they go, well, I'll try and do X, Y, and Z. And I was kind of go, Yoda says there's no do, there's no try, there's only do. Is that because the moment we say we'll try and do something, in our heads we're going, yeah, but it's not really going to happen. Is that so I challenge you is about, rather than saying I'll try and fit this in, is put it in. And again, I tie my clients down too often. It's about when in your diary. Put it in your diary, book it in, and it's more likely to happen. Something I heard recently on a podcast, and I confess I cannot remember who who said this, but they had this thing about they were saying about, like, if you have difficulty getting out of bed or getting around to something, is just going 3, 2, 1, action. And people were finding this useful. I've done it a few times myself with different things, not getting out of bed. I don't have problems with that, but other things. Also, some of my clients have found it useful. So, you're sat down and you're dithering around, going and doing it. And so Mel Robbins has the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 go method. It might well be Mel Robbins. It might well be that's where I got it from. So, but it can be that kind of, because there's something about, if you go 3, 2, 1, go, that you are gearing yourself up for action. I think also is about listening to your whole self, and this comes back to the exercise I'm going to send you, because when we're in a really good place and we've quietened down that inner critic, it's not beating ourselves up, that when you've looked after your fearful child and your sulky child and rebellious child, if you've got them, and you're fully connected to your wise adult self, it's a lot easier to get on and just do things. What I would say is building breaks, even micro breaks. And my brother is always saying to me, because he works for a sight loss charity, is they have the 20-20-20 rule in terms of dealing with screens. So every 20 minutes to look away for 20 seconds at a distance of 20 meters, I think it is, or feet. I think it's meters. Because it relaxes your eyes. And the reason that a lot of people have eye strain, a lot of younger children have glasses really early, because they're working on the screen and not looking at a distance that we need to do. So having micro breaks, having a good stretch, whatever it is that can help you to then come back refreshed, etc. I would also suggest having some support and accountability. So I talked about my accountability buddy. I tend to talk about non-work things. I also have a coach as well on the go. There's my Being and Doing course that's starting next Monday, that for 8 weeks you'll have encouragement every Monday, Wednesday and Friday to kind of keep going, whatever you're trying to achieve. Also getting yourself a coach, of course. And I offer a free coaching audit. Rebecca has put a quote from Winston Churchill: "It's better to do something than to do nothing while waiting to do everything." Well, I like that. Sorry, I'm going to read it again. It's better to do something than to do nothing while waiting to do everything. Very, very wise. Very wise. Because you can end up doing absolutely nothing because you're just procrastinating, tyranny of perfectionism, or whatever else. So, 5th step is really developing a growth mindset, because a lot of time if we slip up, we have setbacks, is we just end up beating ourselves up and we don't move forward and we don't learn from those. And a growth mindset, if you come across Carol Dweck's work, is that she started working in education, but is also taking it into business, is I talk about it a lot with my clients as well, is that when we have a growth mindset, is we're constantly learning and developing. We're constantly reflecting on ourselves. We're not seeing mistakes as a failure, but just part of the learning process. And I think it's really engaging our wise adult self when things go wrong, or when we're facing, challenges and obstacles, is to look at, actually, how do I overcome those? How do I find a way of around them? And putting your learning into practice. So that's the growth mindset. So I just want to sum up now, and then if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Also, once we finish, also feel free to just turn off your mic and to ask a question. It is still being recorded, so just be aware of that. So just in summary, the first thing is, are you really procrastinating? Is that, or are there just certain things that you procrastinate on, and everything else, actually, you're very good at getting things done? Identifying the root cause, and that's where I talked about personality, energy levels, tyranny, the inner dialogue, etc. Setting yourself up for success, doing things like the well-formed outcome, etc. And then step 4, just do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action. And step 5, developing that growth mindset where you are encouraging yourself rather than beating yourself up the whole time. So while I just put on here so that you're aware of what's coming next in terms of the Being and Doing course, offer the free coaching audit. So if you kind of been sat here thinking, oh, this is so true, Melanie, but I don't know how I'm going to change it. Complete the free coaching audit, you complete a questionnaire, send it back to me, then we have a half an hour conversation and I write up a summary, recommend, I have different types of coaching, recommending what would work for you, and then it's up to you to decide. And do sign up for Melanie's Monday Motivational Messages on inspiredtransformation.co.uk if you haven't already signed up. So somebody's saying, thank you, Melanie. Always useful reminders from you. I got to go now. That's okay. Have a good afternoon. No questions. Well, it doesn't seem like anyone's got any questions. Probably covered so much. So it's been great having you here. And I will email people the slides and some of the links and handouts that I've talked about. And once this is edited, it will be sent out via Melanie's Monday Motivational Messages. So thank you very much for joining me. Have a good day.